let's talk about the villages and cost. And I don't mean cost. I mean, is it a place that people can go to and retire?
Yeah.
So, what, like some of the people that I've run into, they have moved from the northern states into Florida.
Right.
For two reasons. One is affordability,
Yep.
and the second one is they're escaping the cold.
Yep.
But I know that you ran into a guy
Yeah.
that left his home state
Yeah.
and moved to the Florida
Sure.
for a completely different reason. Let's
Sure.
talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's interesting. Most of the time, it's because of weather-related issues, taxes, right? One state versus another. In this case, so here's the story. I won't get into which state it was, but he was living in a fairly big city
On the West Coast.
on the West Coast, fairly crime-ridden, pretty bad. He was telling me most of the time, most nights, there'd be gunshots going on. He was in a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
But it's also a state where the values have gone up tremendously, where most people can't afford a house there now. So
Okay.
probably guess where it is. But anyway, bottom line is, he was saying he bought his place for $165,000, many years ago.
Yeah.
Sold it for somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000.
Okay.
And he moves out of this neighborhood, this horrible neighborhood, and he's living in paradise here. He has this beautiful new home.
And he was probably
in a
able to
safe
buy a
commu-
house and put money in the bank,
Probably.
right?
But you know what? He's in a completely different environment.
Right.
And who wouldn't love that?
Right.
Along with good weather.
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and things are changing too. Like there's a lot of people in Florida that have, and I know we're talking about the West Coast of the United States in your case,
Yeah.
but there's people in Florida that are moving from the coast inland just because of costs, right? They've got insurance costs. They've got the potential of losing their home for a storm and being homeless, basically.
Well, it's
right?
pretty interesting because I've been listening. I follow a lot of Florida news, and my understanding is a lot of people are, if they bought a home, let's say on the coast where you could do that, let's say 2010 for 400,000,
Okay.
right? They're paying like $15,000 insurance now to be on the coast,
Right.
right on the ocean. For a lot of people, that's unaffordable.
And that's 15,000 now.
Yeah.
What would have been when they purchased 3,000?
Probably.
Right. So it's five times.
Probably.
500%.
Exactly. So the point is, because we think that most people live on the coast, they're all millionaires, but they're not.
Right.
There were a lot of people who've lived there for decades,
Right.
or they were family homes or whatever it was, and now it's becoming unaffordable. So
Well, and there's people that live in mobile home parks,
yeah,
right? That like my mother had a mobile home
Yeah.
in on the coast,
yeah,
and she paid 60,000 for it 15 years ago. Now the park fees are $6,000 or $7,000 a
oh
year.
really?
She's in her 80s. She's living on a fixed income.
Wow.
So that
Yeah.
huge increase is saying to her, you just can't do it anymore.
It's
right?
crazy. Things are changing. Things are definitely changing. And I guess that's what this whole discussion comes around to. That things are changing, and you got to buy or invest based on where you're at.
Right.
What are you comfortable with? What's your risk tolerance?
Yeah.
And other factors like age and so on. Like, you just got to figure it all out. One size doesn't fit all. That's what it comes down to, right?
It is true. It is, Yeah.
So I think that's really what the
Because I know that the village is, for the most part, Heaven's Gate in a lot of ways, right? Like people have said,
love it.
I'm done with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to come here and this is where I'm going to live out the rest of my life.
Yep.
Then they might be 50, 60, 70,
Yep.
80 years old, but they're not planning to move to Florida and then move to somewhere else.
Yep.
Right? This is their end goal.
This is the place,
Right?
One of the people we used to chum around, I sort of loved his philosophy. So he was, I think he's probably about 50, and he was talking about, this is where I want to grow old. I want to grow old gracefully. I want to play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be active. When you look around, you see people in their 70s and their 80s
Yeah.
because they're active.
Yeah.
They're looking pretty good. Like they're in good shape.
Embarrasses me.
Well, the
You know?
point is, like that's kind of the way it happens there, because if you're out every day, see, I guess part of it is this. So the neighborhood I live in here, we have a lot of friends, a lot of people we know.
Right.
And the social aspect is very important to me.
Right.
The community aspect is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you have down there. Like, if you want, there's no reason to be lonely down there.
For sure.
There are a lot of people who are clubs.
Or inactive.
Well, they have like 4,000 clubs or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's so much.
And if there's not one that you can find, you can start your own club.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's
The
opportunities.
There's a tremendous amount of benefit, not just in real estate, not just in the safety of the community, but there's so many other factors. I mean, it's just an idea that works.
So, sort of circling back to your renting in the villages, because you're dropping in, then you're dropping out. And you're dropping in and dropping out.
Yeah.
But you found that you connected with people
Yes.
fairly quickly.
Real quick.
And not necessarily because of the dog, because that was a separate group of people, but there was also like sitting at Sawgrass and just talking, right?
Oh my God, man. I'd be playing bocce. And you meet somebody, they're just sitting on the bench, and you start talking, and all of a sudden they're saying, hey, why don't you come over for dinner next week?
Right.
Like, I can't tell you, that wasn't very unique. That happened a couple of times where people, why don't you come over for drinks?
Right.
Something like that. So,
But
what?
it is shocking to some degree, right?
Well, yes and no. And I'll tell you why yes and no. Because, again, I live in a community here. When I'm not in Florida, that's like that. It's very friendly, social people that you develop good relationships with pretty quick.
But if you watch the news, there's always this, we don't like our neighbors type, right?
Yeah.
Close in and put up your walls.
Sure.
Whereas you get down there and like you sit at a table and someone comes over and says, is this seat taken? And you're like, first you're a little guarded. Yeah. I know that's how I felt, right?
Yes.
But then a couple of days, 3 days, and everyone's doing it, going, this is kind of normal, or it should be normal, right? This is unique.
You know what it is too? If you put yourself out there, that's what happens.
Right, for sure.
You got to be open to it. You got to be open to it.
Because that's what, like, with pickleball, for instance, and I know that it's a social sport, but there's so many different levels and times and places to play.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going there, you and I are going to play against someone else.
Yeah.
You go there and you stand in line, and whoever you match up with at
you get
that
to know
moment
them.
in time, that's who you play with.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And there's none of this us against you attitude. It's we're all in this together. And
there is. I think I don't want to portray it as kind of like a utopia that way. There are people who play to win because personalities are personalities. But basically, people want to connect there, I find.
Right.
You don't go there to hibernate in your bungalow.
Right.
Right? You kind of want to socialize with people. You want to make some friends. And I think that's kind of what it's all about.
You could be the most introverted person.
You could, yeah.
And you can stay in your place and watch TV. You can do that anywhere in the world.
You could, totally.
But if you are finding that you just want that extra bit of friendship or camaraderie, you can get that in the villages pretty quickly.
So I was just reading a study, and they were talking about longevity, increasing your longevity. I think it was like by 6 or 8 years just by socializing or saying hello or talking for a short period with 6 to 8 people a day.
Wow.
That's all you need to do.
People in the villages are going to live till they're 200. All the saying hi and wave.
So true.
Right?
So true. Yeah.
Like there's places in the world where they call them blue zones. And a blue zone is where they the average life expectancy is above everybody else,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And one of the places like that is Costa Rica,
Yeah.
because of the temperature, the food, the ocean, whatever it is, people live longer in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And it'd be argumentative to say that the people in the villages is in itself a blue zone because of the activity level. And you get down there, like for instance, I'm 58 years old.
Yeah.
I get out, I'm having a coffee at 7 in the morning on Lanai. There's people that are out biking at
man.
half an hour before I am.
know.
There's people walked and have played pickleball and going home for breakfast.
Yeah.
And I'm going, holy mackerel.
You gotta love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more you're there,
Mm-hmm.
the more you become those people.
For sure.
You know, I know we're out walking, doing a long walk, early, probably.
Like when you and Arlene and the dog are down there.
Yeah. And then we'll go over to the dog park.
Yeah.
Like by 8 or 8:30 or whatever it is.
Whereas here by 8, I'm like maybe had a coffee and I'm thinking.
I'm watching the news.
Yeah.
I'm getting depressed watching the news.
Because it's still pitch black out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Or snowing
I
or
got
whatever.
up this morning, it was 6:30. It was freaking dark.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, dark, man.
And
to the
3
point,
degrees. Well, Celsius,
we were
right?
having that discussion about
40 degrees.
when the hell are we changing the clocks? You know, it's like,
Yeah, I know.
but that's what it is, you know. And you know that there's something to be said about that. That's the thing about winter, for instance, in Canada. I mean, I like winter itself. I don't mind it that much, but my God, like last year, I don't think we had any sun all winter.
Yeah,
and that's the killer.
It's the grayness, right?
Yeah, it just gets you down after a while. So, I mean, for me to go down there for the winter, perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I can stay active. I don't need to worry about jogging on ice or playing.
Well, and you can decide which level of active you want to be. Like you can go play bocce, or you can go for a bike ride. Like there's different levels, so much, right?
There's no end to the amount of activity that you can do there. And I guess that's what it really comes down to. I guess, you know, when you try to describe it to people who have never been there, they don't get it.
No.
You know, it's like when you're looking at the sunset, you're trying to take a picture of it.
Right.
Never looks good.
No.
Yeah. No, you've got to experience
Correct.
it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with the villages, is that it's experiential.
Like our friend Rick, right? Rick,
yeah.
He's in his 52, 53 years old.
Yeah.
He's playing softball with people that are in their late 70s.
I think he said there was somebody who's 80
He's getting his ass whooped.
Yeah, I know.
By these guys, right? Because they take it serious.
They're playing all
but
the
they have
time.
different levels. If you wanted to play fun softball, they have a place for you. If you want to play competitive softball, there's a place for you, right? And it's all like they determine that by giving your skill set and figure out where you want to be. Same with pickleball. Same with water volleyball. Whatever it is, you can fit into your bracket of stress level.
There's a perfect example. So I was playing pickleball at a certain level, had a bad injury. Now I'm going back in January. I got people that I can play with recreationally, beginner level or beginner plus level, whatever it is, and still really have fun and really enjoy the game. Yeah. So it's all good. Yeah. It's all good. There's something to suit everybody. I guess that's what it really comes down to, right?
Oh yeah.
You know?
I've never seen anyone get hurt in dominoes.
In what?
Dominoes. Take up dominoes.
And you know for
Mexican train.
You totally know that they've got like what, maybe a dozen clubs devoted to dominoes. Yeah,
it's all the pickleball players that got hurt. They play Mexican train.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to look for something that's a little calmer. You know, but that's all right. I love that game, and I love the courts out there. Yeah. There's so many of them.
Absolutely.
And you can play anytime, just because there's so many villages and so many schedules.
And I think the big, like my wife Kyle and I, the one thing that we enjoy probably more than anything else is after dinner, just getting in the golf cart and going for a 15 or 20 minute golf cart ride. Ooh, just getting out and going for a cruise, and the sun setting, that's cool. But if not, just like we don't do that here.
No.
Here after dinner, we'd be sitting watching TV for 3 hours
news.
and go to bed. Right?
You watch the news getting aggravated, right? That
Yeah.
sort of stuff. I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're saying. So, no, it's really true. We like that too.
And we still work. Like, we're working down there.
Yes, yes.
But instead of, like you say, having dinner and watching TV.
Well, it's interesting how things have changed, right? So, for example, in my career in real estate, 40 years as a real estate broker, couldn't always do it.
Right.
You had to be here,
Yeah.
right? Or you gave your work to somebody, you had to farm it out, whatever the
Right.
heck it was. Now, my God, man, you could be halfway around the world.
Yeah.
And you could still be doing deals.
Yeah, as much as COVID was a very, very bad situation, some good has come out of that.
A lot of good has come
Right.
out of it. Jobs have changed,
Yeah.
right? So
E-signatures.
There's another thing. You know, we're talking about people leaving crime-ridden neighborhoods and moving to villages. People leaving winter
Yeah.
and moving there, right? What about people who work remotely, could live in paradise?
Absolutely.
You know, it's kind of the same.
There's a lot, especially through COVID, there was a huge surge of 50 plus people, like 50 age, that were buying in the villages
Yeah.
and working remotely. That's because they could,
Yeah.
right?
Now there's age restrictions there,
Yeah.
but there's a certain percentage,
Yeah.
That are allowed?
80-20 rule.
80-20. And what is the minimum age requirement?
So you can't have if you live in the house, you can't have a person 19 years or younger living with you. But you could be 30 and live in the villages. But you can't have a 19-year-old living in the village unless you're in the family neighborhoods, Middleton, Oxford Oaks,
the
those types.
new areas,
Yeah. So,
which are amazing in themselves.
themselves,
My
yeah.
God, man, who creates a development like that?
Oh, I
right?
know. Well,
It's
you and I
crazy.
look around here and they say there's a shortage of houses and affordable housing is an issue. You know, throw up a whole bunch of 800 square foot bungalows on cement slabs. Why can't we do it? Right?
Yeah, I mean, here we build with basements for a starter, and we also have a shorter building time
Yeah.
in terms of when we can build, when it's warm enough to build,
Right.
or we have to build in. I think there's some builders that are building in mega factories,
Right.
where they can build indoors, bring in walls and so on. Which I think
Villages does that with
that's
the
what
tilt
they
wall.
do. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe that. I saw it last time.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
They're a
You gotta
machine.
love
The
it.
Villages is amazing.
Well, they figured it out, right? Like lots of credit goes there, right?
100%.
To what they do. So I mean, it's
Yeah, they build 500 homes a month.
and that's probably growing.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably right.
What haven't we covered? Let's go back. This you'll edit.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything we didn't cover? Renting versus owning. What haven't we covered? Do you know anything about capital gains when you sell?
When you're selling for a Canadian, yeah, I don't know enough to really speak
Right. Okay. No problem.
eloquently about it.
Yeah,
Why don't
okay.
we talk about why you would rent there compared to anywhere else,
Okay. I like it.
right?
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
Okay.
So, Al, you and your wife, your dog, you're in Canada, and you have the opportunity to get away for the winter.
Yep.
Like, you can do that.
Yep.
Now, you're restricted to driving because of the dog,
Yep.
but there's lots of places that you could go to. Why go to the villages? Like, village is not cheap,
No.
right? And it's, for the winter months, it's the most expensive time of the year.
Yeah.
And that's probably true of most of the southern areas.
Yeah.
But you could go to South Carolina, you could go to
Sure.
Myrtle Beach,
Yep.
you know, you could go to Texas. What is it that draws you towards the villages?
So, I think the thing is this. We still do our trips, right? To, let's say, Europe or places. That's a different adventure. That's
Right.
more of an adventure. But when we're going on a long-term trip, the reason we choose the villages is because there's no end of things to do there.
Mm-hmm.
You never, ever, never have to be bored.
So let's talk about Arlene for a second.
Yeah, sure.
So Arlene is the dog lover. You
Yep.
too, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Arlene's dog in a lot of ways.
It's Arlene's dog.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you first went to the villages, you were a little bit concerned about how Arlene would participate, right? Is that true to say that? Or like you didn't think that she would...
Is that noise going to bother?
No, that's okay. Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Okay. So I wasn't sure if Arlene would like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something in the villages for everyone. I'm not talking about necessarily activities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about if you want to just go for a real nice walk.
Right.
There are great trails all around that area. Mm-hmm. Dog park, we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do some shopping,
right,
there's good shopping around there.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go to a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about playing tennis, pickleball, golf, being part of a social club. I mean, everybody has interests, right? Like everybody has some form of interest.
And I think that you really sort of started to understand the opportunities when you started getting the newspaper. Because you would sit in the morning and you open it up and you'd say 25 pages of this, what's happening with this club or that club, right? So that opened your eyes to, oh, this isn't just coming down here to golf. This isn't just coming down here to play pickleball.
There you go.
Right?
Right on.
There was so many other things that, like whatever it might be, rock clubs.
The only thing that's sort of your limitations at the villages
mm-hmm.
are yourself.
Right.
That's it. If you want to self-limit,
mm-hmm.
Maybe you won't have a great time.
Right.
But everybody has an interest in something. If you've got 4,000 clubs, there's something that's going to speak to you, right?
Yeah.
And you know how that works. You show up, people talk to you,
mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden it's like you got all these new friends,
Yep.
all these new interests,
well,
and things branch out one thing to another.
Yeah, like Rick, our friend Rick, is in a different village that I live in.
Yeah, right.
And one night he says, listen, I'm going to go play pool with my baseball guys. Come along.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an okay pool player.
Yeah.
But when I went to play, there were other okay pool players. They weren't all sharks, right?
No.
And you just sort of say, hey, I'm here to spend an hour playing pool. And now you've got 6 other people, 8 other people, whatever it might be, that when you see them at Brownwood or when you see them at Sawgrass, you can say, hey, how are you?
I know.
Right? And it just,
that's the way
exponential growth of friendships, right?
Do you remember you and I,
mm-hmm.
we'd never played bocce.
That's right.
And then one day, I'll go out there and I'm just kind of, so I sit down on the bench in the bocce, where the bocce court is.
Yeah.
And a guy comes over to me and says, you want to learn how to play?
Yeah.
Just like that. Doesn't know me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he says, come on, I'll show you.
Mm-hmm.
I played my first time. I'm like a champ. It was like incredible. You know what's really funny? Since then, I've never played that well. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but I was just really,
But then you introduced me to it.
Yeah. And then you and I played.
And then you cheated most of the games. You didn't fill me in on all the rules.
Well, that's one of the rules.
That's one of the rules.
Whoever cheats better wins.
Wins, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly.
But that's like that has happened so many times. Like I'll go to...
That I've cheated?
Yeah. Like go to shuffleboard and there's people playing shuffleboard.
I know.
I don't play shuffleboard, but for an hour I had a great time.
I know, it's
I go play pool or darts or whatever it might be. It's not just... okay, we're going to go play golf every day.
The thing that I found interesting, though, if you hang out
mm-hmm.
at any of these things, somebody comes over and says, hey,
come join us.
Come join us.
Yeah.
Or you want to learn to play. Or, you know, we went into Arlene was interested in one of these quilting things or craft things or something. So we walk into the room and it was amazing what some of these people were doing, like crazy stuff. And somebody came over right away. It's like, are you into quilting? He says, well, you know, I've done some. I'm not very good at it. Says, well, come on, join us. You know, you'll learn stuff just by being around
I think
it.
that's at the beginning of this conversation is like Arlene, I don't think had any idea what she was getting into.
No.
But now in January, she's looking forward to exploring
Yes.
other
Yeah.
things that she never thought were possible before. Right?
Yeah, we're checking the clubs.
Yeah.
See what kind of stuff is
Yeah.
available.
And she's involved in the Facebook groups,
yes,
right?
yes.
She participates in
Yeah, she knows.
conversations. So
Yeah.
like
So
she's
she
got
knows
a
what's
way
going.
better understanding.
She's probably got a better understanding than I do
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
she's on the Facebook
Right.
groups and everything.
But she's going to start gearing her visit 3 months to things that she maybe hasn't done before and wants to do.
Yep.
Or things that she's tried and hasn't had camaraderie with to
Yeah. So
right?
what happens is, this year
Mm-hmm.
you get 3 months. You do some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You develop friendships
Yeah.
with people that you're going to see next year,
Right.
and the year after, and the year
Right.
after.
Right.
So I guess that's what the advantage also is of going to a place that you know
Yeah.
and that you like instead of changing it up all the time.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I guess what it really comes down to, or what I found is the enjoyment, the deep enjoyment in life
Mm-hmm.
really are the friendships and relationships, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, like there's stuff you see that
Yeah.
are amazing, and then you take a picture of it,
Sure.
you go home. That's it, right?
Yeah.
You don't think about it every day.
No.
But friendships are a different kind of thing. Relationships are a different thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Shared experiences.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Because that, I think that works differently on us, like as human beings.
Yeah.
Like, it affects us in a different way.
Sure.
And that's the enjoyment of places like that. And if anything, the Villages does it really, really well. Better than any place I've found so far.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think that the whole idea of getting in a golf cart and going to listen to music,
yeah.
or getting in a golf cart and going to play euchre or Mexican train or
Yeah.
whatever, the dog park,
Well,
whatever
you
that
gotta teach me that dominoes thing,
Mexican train, yeah.
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 right? Oof, that's
a
our
lot
new
of-
game.
It's a lot of fun.
We'll stop hanging out at the
Well, and
butcher shop.
And here's like the place that we have in Citrus Grove. My new neighbors are game people,
Oh.
table game people,
Oh,
and they said, "Come on over, and we'll teach you how to play Mexican train."
oh, it's crazy.
So
like
I
it.
said, "I'll teach you how not
you
to
got-
play Mexican train," and lost every game, right?
Ah, you got to teach me how to play that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and those are like people are more than willing to
Yeah.
engage, right? They're willing to say to you, "Come do this," and if you don't like it, let's do what you want to do, whatever it might be, right? So,
It is different.
mhm.
It is not like the neighborhood you live in
No.
now.
No,
And I think that's what it comes down to. So I always get kind of a rise out of this. I'll go on Reddit.
Mhm.
And I got to tell you, Dave, there's a lot of haters out there at
Sure.
Reddit. There are people who've never been there.
Mhm.
There are people who are like 20, 30 somethings.
yeah,
And they think it's all just a place for
white Trumpers,
affluent,
white Trumpers, the way you
white
go, right?
Trumpers, everything. My God, man. And you know what? That being said, I had thought originally when I went there, from everything I'd read, that there wasn't a lot of diversity of thought.
Yeah,
And when I got there, it was pretty different.
mm-hmm.
People are all over the political spectrum, but actually, I find most people don't even want to discuss politics.
Right,
Because it's kind of like takes you out of that place.
right, right.
You know? You don't want to go home upset.
Yeah, no politics in the pool.
Yeah, no politics in the
No.
pool. You got it, man.
No.
But it was interesting because it was pretty far removed from what I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
From everything I'd read, let's say on Reddit or whatever.
Right.
But
It's
people are
interesting
there
you say that because, like, is it mostly people that don't live there that have
Yes.
that thought process, right?
Or people, there's like, people be talking about, well, it was interesting. There were comments. I thought the greatest comment was one where there were a lot of haters on one day on one of, the Villages site there. And then one guy gets on there he's talking about, yeah, my grandparents used to live there. He says, I used to visit and so on. And he says, I got to tell me what's wrong with riding around in golf carts, no crime, everything's free, you're golf, pickleball, you got no end of activities.
Right.
Big,
You feel
big
safe.
social networks.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with that?
Right.
And, how do you answer that, right? Well,
I don't
funny
understand
thing
it. I don't understand. Like, it's hard for me to say that people are jealous, because jealousy means that you want that and can't have it, right?
Yeah.
In some ways,
Well,
right?
people are divided. You know what it is? People are just. Social media allows people to make statements and not defend them in any way.
Right.
So
they can walk away.
The person that's going to do that is not going to say, well, I've never been there.
Right.
But that's the way I feel about it. Like,
right.
They make it sound like they're an authority on it. Right.
Right.
So I think that's really what it comes down to. So it's easy. It's easy to hide behind
An anonymous post.
Anonymous
Yeah.
post.
Yeah. For
For
sure.
sure. So.